stand-up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe. It's time to stand up with Pete Dominick on vacay.
Hello, and welcome to the fifth and final episode of Stand Up with Pete Dominick LITE this week, as I am on vacation, but still 5 great episodes all this week. David Campbell, April Rain, Dr. Arthur Kaplan, listener Kimberly Kelly, and today it's writer and comedian, award-winning writer and comedian, David Feldman, the host of The David Feldman Show, davidfeldman.com. David is a really great guy, a hilarious comedian and podcaster who has been hosting The David Feldman Show for several years now, and I'm a regular guest on his show, but this was the first time he was on stand-up, and we just talked and we talked and we talked for like an hour and a half. Feldman has written for Roseanne and Dennis Miller and Bill Maher, The Daily Show, Spike Fairstein, and so many others. He also co-hosts a show with Ralph Nader, which I talked with him a little bit about. He's written for the Academy Awards and just so much more. He's also a great stand-up comedian who's appeared on Conan, The Tonight Show, and more. And like I said, I've been on his show several times, and I was really excited to finally sit down with him on my show and get to ask the questions. Most of what we talked about was his political philosophy and political analysis, and I really enjoyed it. But we covered a lot of ground. I hope that you like this fifth and final episode. I love David Feldman, and I'm so happy I now get to share this with you. I hope you had a great week, and thanks for your support. Welcome to new subscribers. Very excited to see new names come in. And here now is my conversation with David Feldman.
A wonderful career as a comedian, as a comedy writer. You've worked with all the greats. You've done all the things. You're hosting your own show now, of course, and I've been on your show several times. This is the first time you've been on mine, but I'm sorry about that, and I'm really happy that you're here and that I get to introduce you and your work to my audience if they don't already know you.
Well, I'm sure they don't already know me, but thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to finally come on your show. You're so great on my show. People love you. You're unprepared. I love having you on the show. We don't ever have to worry about. I think you and I could do 24 hours together, I think nonstop, and never run out of things to talk about.
Well, I actually don't know where to go now.
Yeah. I didn't say it would be entertaining. I just think you and I are so shameless that we could talk for 24 hours and expect people to enjoy it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all about that. Tell people about your show, The David Feldman Show. How long have you been doing it, and how do you describe it, and what type of... I listened to the top of your most recent show, and I thought your political analysis of what's going on right now was really spot on, razor sharp. I agreed with all of it. I thought I might disagree with some of it, but I didn't.
Oh, thank you. Coming from you, because you do the same thing, and you work very hard prepping the show. My show, which you're a major part of, is for insomniacs. It's for people who are on long drives, who are flying somewhere, and they're too lazy to look for another podcast. My podcasts run from 6 to 8 hours each, Mondays and we tape them Mondays and Thursdays, and we drop them Tuesdays and Fridays. And when I was a kid, I had insomnia. I used to listen to talk radio that started at 11 at night and went till 5 in the morning. It was the same host taking calls, and I found it very soothing. And that's kind of what my show is. It's for people who drift in and out, who want some kind of conversation in the background while they're doing their dishes, making love to their wife, committing a, 5-state crime spree, stuff like that.
Do you hear from a lot of listeners that actually make love to your show?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I make it last longer.
Yeah. Well,
I'm a boner killer.
I love being on it. I love talking to you. I guess I thought that you were more unreasonable politically as opposed to being more pragmatic. And then I heard you recently argue with a regular guest who joins you, who I like. He's been on my show as a result of you, Ben Burgess, and you sounded more reasonable and pragmatic about how things actually work. And so, how would you describe your politics? And are you offended that I suggested I thought you were unreasonable?
I think there's seasons to my politics, and I've been pretty honest about that on the show. There's a time to be insufferable. There's a time to say, I want what I want when I want it, now. And then there's a time you have to step back and get on board. And there are seasons to politics. This is the season right now where if you're a Democrat, if you're a lefty, if you're a liberal, you roll up your sleeves. This is what I believe. You roll up your sleeves and you work with what you got, no matter how much you loathe Pelosi, Biden, and Schumer. And then when they let you down, and they will, we turn on them. But now is the time to cooperate with them. Now is the time to get something done, put some numbers on the board.
Why do you think there are so many comedians who are really sharp, great political commentators, and who are the ones you like and who are the ones you don't like as much?
Well, I don't know. I think there's a danger to comedians being political commentators because they can hide beneath the cover of it was a joke. And so we have to be very careful. Comedians can get away with saying a lot of things and then backtracking. I was only joking. That's a tool of fascism. That's part of the fascist playbook, where you test the waters. You push it as far as you can. And when there's pushback, you say, it was a joke. It was a joke. So you see that Ann Coulter, Rush Limbaugh, Milos Yiannopoulos. It's always, I was attempting humor. No. You said something that was grossly offensive. And now you're hiding and saying it was just a joke. So I think we have to be careful listening to comedians because their words are not as measured as, and you know this, I don't think comedians measure their words as carefully as an expert or a scholar or a journalist. So I think it's kind of dangerous to get your news from comedians. But
you mentioned Milo and Laura, or what's her name?
I don't know. I wasn't listening as I was talking.
Ann Coulter,
Laura Ingraham. They all.
But they're not comics.
But they think they're funny,
right?
And they all, when they cross a line, they always say, "Well, I attempted humor at my own peril." No, you were just being racist or sexist or homophobic.
Who is someone that you like and respect that does?
You. I respect you.
I don't know if that's true.
I like Sam Cedar. I think he's got the best political show. I think that's the most.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. His analysis is, in my opinion, the most reasonable, intelligent, and with integrity, without selling out on in any way. And I like his delivery. I like all of it. I love what Sam does. Always have.
Yeah.
You were recently on his show, and you guys had a hilarious conversation. What is it that you, David Feldman, care about the most, issues wise? Because it seems like you're very concerned about health care, and I don't know why that's such an important issue for you. And I wanted to try to figure that out.
Well, I'm beginning to wonder if what I care about is germane to what the rest of America cares about. I can't imagine Medicare for all not being the most important issue of our time.
Climate.
This is what I believe. I believe single payer. I believe that nobody should have to pay to see a doctor, dentist. Nobody should have to pay. Nobody should have to deal with an insurance company. I believe that insurance companies have to be put out of business the same way the tobacco industry has to be put out of business. I know for a fact that the business model for insurance companies is to kill us. It's incontrovertible. If you're sick, they wait you out and hope you die before they have to reimburse you. That's the business model. It's immoral. It's sinful. And I think it's a winning message to demonize the healthcare industry. I think it's a winning message for the Democrats. The problem is too many people in the Democratic Party, and we have to get rid of them, own stock in Aetna, Humana, Blue Shield. They don't want to turn over the apple cart because they have a vested interest in this. I think everything flows from Medicare for All. You reveal who you are by whether or not you're for Medicare for All. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's less insidious than owning stock and maybe more like they have millions of constituents that live in their state that work at, like in Connecticut, where Lieberman was so kind of bought and paid for it because he actually has people that work there, and he's not going to get reelected if a whole bunch of people lose their jobs because there's no more private health insurance. So it seems like a job thing more than a stock thing, which is still bad, but
Can I address that?
No, you cannot address it.
Pramila Jayapal, the congresswoman, introduced a Medicare for All bill that Bernie co-sponsored, and one of the clauses in the bill is a 5-year retraining program for people whose job it is to kill your child. Now, that is your job. The great thing about not having to be on broadcast television or broadcast radio is you can speak the truth. If you work for the insurance company, yes, you're part of the gross national product, gross domestic product. You contribute, you pay taxes, but you're a hitman. You're a hitman for the insurance companies. That's your job. Now, that might be cruel to say that to somebody who works for Aetna, but you murder people. Your job is to make sure that you deny treatment for terminally ill children because it's too expensive. That's your job. Now, do I care about protecting your job? Not really, quite frankly. I don't care. If you can't make the connection between yours saying, no, we're turning down this operation or this medicine, if that's your job, I really couldn't care less about you. But I understand there's a political framework we have to operate in, and people will do. I also understand that people will do anything to make a living. That I understand. You have to feed your family. So I think Pramila Jayapal and Bernie have addressed this, a 5-year transition to train you to do something that actually helps people instead of kills them. You have to speak the truth to the American people. If you work for Aetna, if you work for Humana, part of your job is killing people. You have blood on your hands. Now, that's not a winning message politically, but that is the truth. And we've infantilized the electorate and the American people that you can't say that. Well, I'm saying it. If you work for Blue Shield, you're contributing to the death of children. You kill children. That's a fact. It's undeniable. But nobody will say that because it's considered impolite.
I have to do a live read for Aetna right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm sponsored by Blue Shield.
Oh, you are as well?
Yeah, they're good people. Yeah. They kill fewer people than Aetna. So,
is it? I think that's their slogan.
Yeah.
Well, you make
a moral issue. The thing that you're getting me worked up. Do you mind?
I would rather just sit here and listen to you talk.
Well, it's a moral issue. And I don't understand why the Republicans, these faux Christians, seize the moral high ground when when we have a winning message. We could have a winning message if we went all in on single-payer Medicare for all and took the fight to Wall Street. The American people would support us. The problem is the Democrats have been infiltrated by multimillionaires. There are probably more multimillionaires in the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. Nancy Pelosi, I had to issue a correction on my show. I said she was worth $200 million, and somebody corrected me. She's only worth $100 million. Well, she has real estate. She's a landlord. It's hard to actually pinpoint how much your real estate is worth. So she may be worth $200 million.
What do you think of those on the left that say, the left is as bad as is the right, and this kind of horseshoe theory that you're hearing, that phrase about people like our friend? Are you friends with Jimmy Dore? I used to be really good friends with him.
I used to be really close to Jimmy Dore, but Jimmy stopped talking to me.
Why?
He claims that I took a job on a radio station. They offered me a show on a radio station in Los Angeles, and I didn't ask him for permission first because he was already on, and then, but he has to fight with everybody. So he was upset that I got a show on KPFK without clearing it with him first.
I don't understand why he would be involved with your decision making.
Well, he also had a show on KPFK, and it's kind of like the Garrison Keillor syndrome. Nobody was allowed to be a comedian on NPR unless it was cleared by Garrison Keillor. So Jimmy felt that I didn't get his blessing for my show because he's a comedian.
I find that grotesque, that kind of thing. I always feel good about helping other people get work.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So he stopped talking to me. Jimmy has to have enemies. He is a scorpion. If you get close to him, he will bite you. He will attack you.
Well, what do you think of him and others on the left, or that purport to be on the left, that are, make those equivocations between the left and the right, and
Well, I don't think they're as important as they think they are, or we think they are. I don't think that the Twitter universe or the podcast universe reflects what's really going on in the world. So they have a lot of followers, but not really. Nina Turner didn't win. Bernie didn't win. I really don't have an inflated sense of myself. I don't. I think sometimes the infighting on the left that's going on with these podcasts is they don't want to do the homework and talk about something really important, like infrastructure. That's hard work. So it's better to have feuds are a great way to get eyeballs. Believe me, I've been following Jimmy and the Young Turks and Kyle Kalinske, and if I see anything, it's great. I want to, if I have an opportunity to see people making love or have to read about what's in the infrastructure bill, I'm going to watch porn over having to go over the infrastructure bill.
Right.
If I see a fight, if I see MMA, or I see, Cenk and Anna going up against Jimmy, I much rather watch a fist fight.
I agree with that, but I just would never want to sell it. I'll buy it. It's like other comedians as well. Comedians that sometimes I find, offensive or something. Like, I wouldn't sell that because I wouldn't feel good about it, having to get eyeballs or ratings or subscribers because I'm going to be so divisive and controversial. It seems like so many people just jump on things like having an unpopular take about Simone Biles was so disingenuous to me. It's like, come on, we're not divided over this. Everybody agrees you're just being a dick. I feel like there's a lot of people who just say things that they don't mean to get attention, to get likes and subscribers and support and all that. And I think that's not that hard to do. But if you have a conscience, you don't do that. As a comedian, you don't do certain things. And the same as a podcaster or a broadcaster or, being on Twitter. I don't like that kind. I don't know what you call it, but it seems like a cheap and shitty,
catering to the. It isn't even the lowest common denominator. It's below the lowest common denominator.
So
the other problem is you are competing with other podcasters, so you have to come at a top, not you, some of these people on the left have to come at news stories in a way that separates them from the herd, and especially mainstream media. That you cannot parrot anything that's heard on MSNBC. Otherwise, what's the point of turning to podcasts? And that need to be different from Rachel Maddow. And I understand that. And like 80% of everything on MSNBC and CNN is a complete and utter waste of time. And the other 20% is just an indulgence and laziness. Sometimes the fresh hot take is exactly what Joe Biden is saying. That's the fresh hot take. There's no fresh hot take on vaccines and masks and the Wuhan lab leak. And this need to be different is irresponsible and dangerous. And again, getting your news from comedians who just turn on a microphone and start talking. Not all comedians, they're not that bright. Well, not all comedians are bright.
That's an understatement. And a lot of them apparently are deviant, sexual, assaulting people. But we knew that. So
are you bringing, hey, that's part of the, we agreed we weren't going to talk about it.
You never assaulted anybody you had power over. You always focus on targets that have power over you, which is, explains a lot about your career. The executives at HBO are the people that you went for, I think.
Unlike Louis, I masturbate up as opposed to masturbating down.
Right. You walk into executive's office, not potential aspiring comedians. You said on your podcast, which I thought was really brilliant, because I don't fully agree with you about, say, MSNBC. I mostly agree with you. I had an argument. My first ever conversation with Chris Cuomo was a vehement 45-minute phone argument about why radio was better than TV, because we both interviewed the same guest.
Of course it's better.
Yeah.
There's no question.
So you had this riff on your show about if you're watching your news, you're ignorant. If you read your news, then you understand. Something like that. I wanted to get you to do that. Talk about that.
Well, there's this myth because of television that last summer's protests were violent. And that enables the right wing to say January 6th was no different from what happened last summer. That's what the talking point is on the right, that January 6th, while it was, menacing and unfortunate, it was no different from the looting and the rioting and the killing that went on during the George Floyd protests. That's a lie repeated over and over again. There was no violence coming from BLM. And if you listen to my show, I go over the stats. The BLM protests were surprisingly peaceful. There was some looting. There were a few police cars that were set on fire. That was not sanctioned by BLM. That was maybe Antifa or agent provocateurs. The Umbrella Man. I mean, there are stories of badgeless police officers infiltrating the marches and then creating trouble. Only 3 people died last summer from the protests. Now, there was ancillary violence. There were people who got hit by cars that had nothing to do with the protests. There were people settling scores adjacent to the protests. But in terms of actual violence, these are the 3 protesters who died. 2 BLM protesters died in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They were shot by Kyle Rittenhouse, who was a white 17-year-old fully armed kid who was friendly with the police and came to Kenosha fully armed to protect the police. There's video of him talking to the police afterwards, and he was treated with kid gloves after they found him. He was treated like Dylan Roof. And who's raising money for his legal defense? The Republicans.
And Ricky Schroeder at one point.
That's 2. There were 3 deaths. There was one right-wing protester killed in Portland, supposedly by Antifa, not BLM, Antifa. But we'll never get to the bottom of that story because federal agents found this alleged Antifa shooter. No warrant for his arrest. They just fired 30 shots at him, and he died. So we'll never get to the bottom of that. So I'll give you the Antifa guy shooting the right-winger, but Antifa isn't BLM.
That's right. Right.
How many cops died last summer? 1. 1 cop was shot by a Boogaloo boy. They're right-wingers. They're the devotees of Tucker Carlson. The Boogaloo boy shot a cop. No BLM protesters shot any cops. There were no cops who got their eyes gouged the way they did on January 6th. The BLM protesters, they do not sanction violence. They're not, January 6th, we're hearing, there's video. You're going to die tonight to the cops. There was none of that from the BLM protesters. This is from the Washington Post, the Brennan Center. These are from the New York Times. Any violence that happened last summer, according to the New York Times, according to the Brennan Center, according to the Washington Post, according to the Guardian, the violence that was visited upon those protests came from the police. Incontrovertible evidence that all the violence came from the police. You repeat a lie over and over again, which the right does, and now some of my friends on the left are doing. People start believing that last summer's protests, the protesters were violent. Was there violence? Yes, not from the protesters.
Or
not from the protesters.
As a result of police starting shit.
Police starting shit or counter-protesters, people who are right-wing showing up at the BLM marches and starting shit.
Can I ask you about your life?
Sure.
What about your life?
What about it?
I don't know. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Englewood, New Jersey.
What was your relationship like with your parents?
I'm a comedian.
So not enough love or too much love?
Both.
That's how I always break it down with comedians. Do you like that paradigm?
Yeah, but I had both.
How did you have both?
I'm the grandson of 4 immigrants. So, I was supposed to realize the American dream, the idea that we came here, and you have to succeed. And that's always been in the back of my head. And I really haven't lived up to the pressures that were put on me to make the passage to America worth my 4 grandparents.
How do you measure such things?
How do you measure success?
How did they?
I measure success by a woman who only loves me because of my money. I have never been able to find a woman who loves me because of my money. They only love me because I'm a generous lover, that I'm kind, that I'm, I don't yell, I'm kind of nebbishy. They sometimes laugh. They love me because I read, but they won't love me for my money. And I think, what was the point of my 4 grandparents crossing the Atlantic, escaping persecution, coming to America,
right?
Than for me not to find a woman who will love me for my money?
Do you have any money?
No. But what little money I have, I would like to be able to say to a woman, it's become clear to me that you only love me for my money, so let's just put our cards on the table. We know what this relationship is. Okay? That's, to me, a sign of a successful man.
Well, where did your
Unfortunately, you know what? Unfortunately, there's a little part of me that believes that.
Well,
there's a little part of me that believes that, because when I became a comedian, I was convinced that the only way I could ever have a woman who loves me is if she saw me on stage.
Yeah.
She would never love me for who I really am.
Well, that is who you really are on stage, but I understand. So where were they immigrants from, your grandparents?
From the worst of the worst. Poland, Hungary, Russia, maybe Czechoslovakia. And just my life, when you ask where are your grandparents from, I say Ellis Island, an island called Ellis. Everything started in America. Poland, Hungary, still horrible places, still ultra right wing and racist. I mean, if you look at their current governments, they have a long storied history of authoritarian, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Semites, white nationalists. Hungary, Orban right now. These countries have a strain that is pretty reprehensible. So
were they all Jewish?
No. My grandparents were fleeing, escaping, of course.
All of them.
You don't know I'm Jewish?
No, I know actually that you're Jewish because I lived on the Upper West Side for 12 years, and I worked at a gym at the Equinox there, and I ran the members' cards, and I got to know 17 men named David Feldman. So, yeah, I know you're Jewish.
I'm not Jewish. I'm Jewish.
What does that... what was your upbringing like? Were you religious? Was it secular? How do you feel?
No, I was raised. I don't think people are interested in this.
You don't?
No, I don't think people care. But I was raised in a secular household, but I was sent to an Orthodox Hebrew school for 12 years.
And you think that's a boring thing to talk about?
Yes. It's my parents did not celebrate any of the holidays. I say my mother is a foul-weather Jew. She doesn't like the holidays. She loves the anti-Semitism. She just loves to focus on the Holocaust, anything that's bad about being Jewish, or anybody who, hates the Jews, she loves that. And I say, you're a foul-weather Jew. You don't partake in any of the holidays. You don't read the Torah and see the wisdom there, or you don't study the Talmud. You just love the persecution that comes with it.
Well, what do you...
Real funny. She laughs when I say that, but it's kind of true. No, I went to, they made sure I had that Orthodox training. I went 3 to 4 times a week.
Is that a value to you in your life now?
It's like, is having a penis a value to me? It's part of me. I don't question my penis. It questions me. It says, "Are you sure?" I go, "Yes, I'm sure." "Are you really sure? You really want to do? We really want to go in there?" "Yes, we really want to go in there." But I don't question my penis, and I don't question. I'm Jewish. I mean, I had no choice.
Right.
So, and you cannot. What some people don't understand, it is a religion, but for some, it's not a choice.
Right.
And we learned that in Nazi Germany.
What are your feelings about, do you think this is interesting to talk about
Talk about whatever you want. I just find myself incredibly boring, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, but I don't. And
Okay.
I'm good at this. So trust me.
Would you love me for my money, please?
Well, if I knew what your net worth was, I'd be able to consider it more. But until I know that, then it's not something.
Why does it have to be a lot of money?
For me, it doesn't have to be that. For me, I see the attraction to people in what other things they might offer me. Like, I like to have a lot of friends who are physicians that I can just text. I don't care if they, or someone that knows how to, fix an engine or like a pool pump. I like to have that. That's a value to me.
I know that, but go ahead. So what was your next question,
And of course, I like people that have high net worths as well. I wanted to know how you were feeling about people who are anti-vax. Have you talked to anybody in your life that wasn't getting the vaccine? Do you have anybody in your life? How do you feel about them? How do you talk to them if they're in your life?
Well, I have a rule on my show. I don't know. I will not talk about the vaccine on my show unless you're telling people to get the vaccine. Period. Full stop. Any conversation about the vaccine from comedians or from English professors, anything other than go get the vaccine, in my estimation, is irresponsible. Now, a doctor, any doctor who tells you not to get the vaccine is a quack. That's my position on the show. But this is your show, so I'll do whatever you want. But I don't think this is the dangers of having comedians turning on a microphone and reaching millions of people.
Yeah, I don't like platforming conspiracy theories. I don't like giving them...
I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about...
No, I know.
Yeah.
Joining us now, anti-vaxxer, Mike Baxter. Mike.
I mean, I don't understand why, if you have millions of listeners, why you would give both sides to the vaccine story. What that does, when you go on, if you're a lefty who goes on Tucker Carlson, or what you're doing is you're giving credence to Tucker Carlson. You're making him appear balanced. When somebody has a show and they have an anti-vaxxer on their show, and then they have a legitimate scientist or doctor, then you elevate the anti-vaxxer. So if you put an anti-vaxxer on and then speak to a world-class expert later, you've then elevated the anti-vaxxer.
A good example of that, not on the vaccine, but was I accidentally was watching that Morning Joe, and they have my friend Eddie Glaude Jr., who's a Princeton, professor. He's got a PhD in history and African American studies, and really just one of the brightest guys. Teaches at Princeton, and they brought on this guy who is the kind of creator of going after critical race theory, a guy from some right-wing think tank, and they kind of they brought him on to debate, and I was like, that's such a crying shame, because you're making it seem like there's two sides to an issue where there isn't, and it just seemed like watching Mike Tyson fight me, that no business being in the ring with him.
Right, and going on Tucker Carlson, if you're on the left, the excuse for going on Tucker Carlson is, I'll talk to anybody. Bernie went on Fox. Yes, Bernie went on Fox, but it wasn't with Tucker Carlson. It was with Bret Baier, who is, somewhat of a journalist. But Tucker Carlson is meeting with Orban in Hungary. Tucker Carlson is a white nationalist.
Yeah.
There's no question that Tucker Carlson is a white nationalist. I've seen him with Gavin McInnes. I've seen those videos of him. Why would Tucker Carlson be meeting with Orban, the authoritarian, homophobic, racist leader of Hungary, if he wasn't part of a larger authoritarian movement? So if you go on Tucker Carlson, you're legitimating him and making him look balanced. It's really reckless.
Who's the most dangerous commentator in the world?
Trump.
Yeah, but it's a good answer. But I think that there's a better answer, because he doesn't come up with his own material.
I do. Oh, Trump doesn't come up with his own material?
Not a lot of it. He'll hear the theory, the conspiracy theory, and then he'll jump on it and start touting it. Stop the Steal wasn't his. He was like, oh, that's great. It's a great bit. He reminds me of a thief, a comedian who steals all of his ideas.
I think what he does is he aggregates a lot of stuff that he hears on Fox News or from Alex Jones.
Yeah. So
and
that's
then he repurposes it. He packages it in a way that's very accessible.
So outside of him, who's the most dangerous? There's only one answer.
Okay, let me see if I can guess. The most dangerous pundit?
Yep. With any kind of audience, yeah.
I mean, there's, I don't know, I would say Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
Somebody, Ben Shapiro?
It's the one who's the smartest. I'll give you that's my final hint.
Michael Savage?
No.
Michael Savage is the smart. Is he on Fox?
You might not be thinking of him as a commentator, but he is. He's got a daily show, and yeah. Do you want to know the answer?
John Fugelsang.
He's dangerous. He is dangerous.
I can't hear you.
He is dangerous, but only to the ladies.
Yeah, I know.
It is Steve Bannon.
Oh, yes. I agree with you.
Do you agree with me?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Why?
Why do I agree with you?
Yes.
Because he is an intellectual, and he is very difficult to argue with, and he can actually defend authoritarianism and dismantling the administrative state. He can defend white nationalism from a populist, from our side. You know, he can win over a Bernie. I don't know if you're a Bernie supporter, you may not be, but Steve Bannon can hive off some Bernie supporters with some very convincing. I mean, the guy, he's a Harvard graduate, I think, or he went to some. I mean, he's not an idiot.
He was in the Navy.
If you went to Harvard, that makes you an idiot. But he has some book learning.
So I think that he's definitely.
Have you met him?
I worked with him every single day.
And he smells bad, right?
No, he doesn't. He smells clear.
Oh.
Like nothing.
I heard he smells really bad.
No, he looks like he smells bad, so people think that. But I worked with him every day. In fact, he smells good. But
maybe you smell bad.
It might have been me that people, because we shared a studio. But I thought he was highly effective at he has people come on his show now. He has the My Pillow and the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and he has them just say crazy shit for as long as they want, and then he just says thanks for coming on. I am
My Pillow guy, crack addict, ex-crack addict, ex-gambling addict.
Yeah,
never graduated from. I think he has a high school degree. The My Pillow guy.
Yeah, he's
crack and gambling.
What do you think of him?
What do I think of the My Pillow guy?
Do you feel bad for him?
I feel bad for the mentally ill who are elevated. You know, it used to be useful idiots. Stalin coined the phrase useful idiots. Now the Republicans have useful sociopaths. They find people like Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and they find me a useful sociopath, and they put them out front. Paul Gosar, Dr. Paul Gosar, the dentist.
He's terrifying.
There are some people who are educated, who are smart. To be a dentist, you have to be really smart.
Rand Paul is a doctor.
Okay.
And I argue with him years ago on at Sirius about climate change, and it's fascinating. I always think of that. I think of that argument every time he talks about COVID or anything scientific. I think he's also, I don't know what he believes, but he's just horrible. Do you think there's any truth? Do you think there's any truth to? Do you think there's the criticism of Anthony Fauci is warranted, and maybe funding the research that might have led to?
Can I say something about Rand Paul?
Yeah.
If you're a racist, you will slap a patina of ideology that's acceptable all over yourself. Libertarians, I'm not saying all libertarians, you can't call yourself a racist anymore. You can't even say you're for states' rights without sounding like a racist. I'm not saying all libertarians are racist, but nobody says I'm a segregationist anymore. And nobody says they believe in states' rights anymore. They do say I'm a libertarian. What we have found with Rand Paul's father, Dr. Ron Paul, from Texas, is his newsletters, his policies were written by inveterate racists. There is a long history of the father's newsletters containing highly racist.
And then Rand Paul had that guy working for him. That was, do you remember what I'm talking about? I forget that story.
I don't remember the guy's name.
He was like one of his top policy people, I think, and he was writing under some pseudonym as kind of saying all kinds of white supremacist shit. Tucker Carlson had similar thing happen with someone on his staff. It's like these guys behind them, there are these hardcore white supremacists, and every once in a while they get outed.
Right. So they call themselves libertarians. You can't say I'm a racist. You can't say I'm a fascist. You can't say I'm a segregationist. I just believe in choice, except when it's abortion. But I believe in freedom and choice, and you should pick whatever school you want to go to. That kind of stuff. It's just all coded dog whistles. So what do I think of Rand Paul? I think he's a very wise doctor who has figured out a way to disguise his racism.
Yeah. What do you think about Fauci and the criticism of him?
Fauci is in an impossible situation. There are two criticisms of him that I think are unfair. Right now, he's being transparent about the booster shots. He has said, I cannot say we're going to need booster shots, which we will need, because if I say we need booster shots, then the 100 million Americans who won't get a vaccine are going to think, well, what's the point of getting vaccinated if I'm going to have to get vaccinated again? So he's a little too calculating, misleading the American people about the need for booster shots. We're going to need booster shots. And these breakthrough cases, which are infinitesimal, point possibly to we're going to need booster shots, the same way you need a booster shot for other vaccines. And then the thing with the masks.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, how can masks not work? But he was afraid of a run on masks the way there was a run on toilet paper. And we had hospitals that were woefully ill-prepared to handle COVID. So he was protecting healthcare workers the best way he knew how, which was to tell the American people, we're not so sure about masks. Was he right? No, he was wrong for doing that. But in terms of, was Eisenhower, did Eisenhower make mistakes on D-Day? I mean, we're talking about a global war against a virus and misinformation. How did he mishandle this? I mean, and he was dealing with Trump, and he survived Trump. He figured out how to survive the Trump administration and still have the trust of the Biden administration.
Imagine being him, and part of the problem was that he couldn't appear to be more popular than Trump, so he had to limit his appearances and stuff.
I don't understand the criticism. I don't want to get into the Wuhan lab leak.
Yeah, that's the main criticism, that they funded. I think there's some legitimate criticism about funding research to
the gain of function thing.
Yeah, the gain of function thing. I think there's some legitimate criticism. I don't
really. Are you a doctor? Can you? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude to you.
I think you are being rude to me. I talked to. I don't think anything really. I don't think. I haven't seen evidence that Fauci or the NIH was funded inappropriately. And on this story, I go to primary sources, which are actual researchers who do the research, and I ask them, and so no, they don't think. But there are people like Josh Rogan at the Washington Post, writing about this, which it's interesting to read. I don't think it's.
Well, you do know, I have talked about this on my show, and there's only circumstantial evidence.
Right.
No proof that nothing has changed in the past.
Yeah.
And it started, the lab leak theory comes to us from Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. It is part of the right-wing agenda. If you're promoting the Wuhan lab leak theory, it's propaganda that is being spread by the right-wing authoritarians who want two things. They want to go to war with China. They want war with China. They want to blame the virus on China and gin up hatred for China, because that is what feeds the military-industrial complex. We need an enemy to justify the more than $1 trillion a year we spend on defense. So it's got to be China. And Trump shit the bed. The Republicans shit the bed on COVID. So if it's as he called it, the China flu, and it's all China, and it was a leak that they either made a mistake or they did it on purpose, and we don't know. That fuels. Look at the source of forget the source of COVID. Look at the source of the Wuhan lab leak theory. It's Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas who wrote in the New York Times that President Donald Trump should send troops into the cities to combat Black Lives Matter. Tom Cotton is the one who introduced the Wuhan lab leak theory into the public square. Look at the source of this theory. It's coming to us from crackpots.
Yeah, I think mostly that's. But it's what do you think of old man Biden so far? Where were you on him as a candidate, and how do you think his performance has been?
Well, I love America, so I'm rooting for him.
Why do you love America? Why do you love America?
I was rooting for Trump. I'm rooting for DeSantis in Florida. I'm hoping that DeSantis comes to his senses and turns it around, the COVID around. And, you know, I'm rooting for America. So I'm rooting for Trump. I mean, Biden, like there's any difference between the two. There is a difference between Biden. You know, I met Joe Biden years ago, and I found him charismatic, but I also found him, well, I'm rooting for him.
I don't understand rooting for politicians who you don't agree with, because if they succeed, then they're doing things that you don't agree with.
Well, I think the infrastructure bill, while woefully short, the first infrastructure bill, there's nothing in that bill so far that's bad. It's just not enough. But there's nothing in there like the Hyde Amendment. There's nothing in the infrastructure bill that says, like, if you're a contractor who ever built a Planned Parenthood center, you can't get a federal contract to build a bridge.
But you said
there's nothing bad in that bill. It's just not enough.
But you said you're rooting for DeSantis. What are you rooting for him to do? Or
that Florida's ICUs will be empty. That COVID will not.
But if you root for him, then it's going to get worse because he doesn't want to do anything about it. I don't understand when you said you're rooting for Trump. If you're rooting for them, they're going to destroy everything.
Well, I'm rooting that they don't destroy everything.
No, I don't understand that logic.
Are you there?
Yes, I don't understand that logic.
When he met with Kim, who's the
Kim Jong-un?
Is it Kim Jong-un
or Kim Kardashian? Which Kim?
When he met with Kim Kardashian, I said, this is fifth grade. You know, this is amateur hour, but you know, if we don't have a war, I don't. If he could somehow stop the virus from spreading while he was president, I was rooting for him.
Well, okay, so you're rooting for leaders to do things that you think that they should, but you don't, I guess, probably have faith that a Trump or a DeSantis is going to do what they should, because they.
No, but I'm rooting for America.
Are you watching the Olympics? Do you root for America in the Olympics?
No.
Why not?
For me, the displacement theory comes from, you know, where the Jews will not replace us and the Mexicans.
Where are you on that replacement theory?
Oh, I'm just going to say my brain. It originally comes from the displacement theory about memory, that things you take in, they used to believe displaced old thoughts. And so I have like a displacement theory when I triage the news. There's just if I follow the Olympics, then I don't know what's going on with Kim Kardashian and Justin Bieber,
right,
and Haley Baldwin. I'd rather follow what's going on with Haley Baldwin and Justin Bieber than the Olympics. Sports to me it's a character flaw for me. I don't follow sports. I wish I did. I wish I could relax and enjoy a baseball game, but I'm mentally ill.
What is your mental illness?
I'm an alcoholic.
How's that going?
Pretty good. I haven't had a drink since 5 o'clock. No, I haven't had a drink in 30 years. I haven't smoked pot in 30 years.
Oh.
I am obsessed with time, not wasting my time.
Well,
to the point where it's like an OCD thing. So I'm a workaholic, and I can't stop working, and I feel like I'm not reading enough. I'm not learning enough.
I have a similar. I really relate to everything you just said. Not everything, but not the addiction stuff. How is that still a thing for? Is that still play a role in your life? Your addiction? Do you go to meetings? Do you have a practice? Is it an issue, or is it you don't think about it? It's not a big part of your life.
I just have different addictions now.
But you've replaced them with,
work.
Yeah.
To the point where it destroys relationships, including work relationships. So.
Well, it hasn't destroyed your show. I really like being on it. I really like listening to it
because you're on it,
and I like talking to you. And I'm glad that we finally got you over here. So let's. Is there anything else that you had a burning desire to share? Because I don't have to go. I just wanted to be respectful of your time.
I can keep talking.
Okay.
I mean, I've told you some stuff that I don't think I've told anybody before. I don't know if your audience would be interested in this, but
the things that you've told. Listen, I just like having good conversations and learning about other people and from other people. And you and I always, as you started this, have that. So I've been really impressed with your insights in a lot of different ways. So I'm happy to hear them on all things.
Your insights are incredible. You have an amazing knack to process information. There's so much. What you do that's so great is there's a fire hose of information being thrown at us, and we need people like you who can, sift through the information and tell us what's important and make the connections. I can't keep track of everything. Somebody was on my show yesterday talking about Paul Manafort's second trial.
Yeah.
And I went, huh?
Yeah. Well, in my case, I talk to two people at least, if not more, a day, every day for the last 14 years. So I have always thought, and I think you share this, like if you want to know something, you ask somebody who knows it. That's why you have the guests that you have on your show. That's why I do have people on this, and so I just learn from them every day, and I do soak some of it in. I mean, a lot of it just goes right back out, and I have to relearn it.
Yeah, but again, the thing that I just find so frustrating is how easy it is to spread lies about what actually happened.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that, and because I did want to talk with you about race. Are you a racist?
No, I'm not a racist. No. No.
What you said on your show, and I share this, I don't understand sometimes how black people don't just throw their arms up in the air and just beat the shit out of us. Like the kind of the sustained indignities and brutalizations. It's hard to understand how there aren't more issues, and I don't want to try to create any, but it's a kind of empathy that you can have just seeing people be discriminated against and marginalized and punished for such a long time. And I wonder where you think we're at right. You care about that issue a lot, and they're talking about lying. This is the point I'm trying to get to. They're trying to retell American history right now, and not only in the 100 years ago or 50 years ago, but what happened on January 6th. It's very interesting. So to your point about lying as it relates to race and racism is what I wanted to ask you about.
We should teach racism in our schools. This country, you teach the truth. This country was founded first by indentured servants. We had indentured servants brought to America. They were white, and we had farmers who bought their servitude. And you would have to work for like 7 years for the farmer, and then you were free. And that didn't work, because after 7 years you needed to buy a new worker. And when they discovered African slaves from the Portuguese and started bringing them into America in 1619, right? Is that the year? 1619 project. And that was property, and this country was founded on free black labor. That's not a moral statement. I'm not passing judgment. I'm telling you the truth. Why wouldn't you teach that to our kids? That we committed genocide, that in order to make way for the railroads and for Missouri and Kansas and North Dakota, certainly Oklahoma, the Trail of Tears, we committed genocide with our first peoples. Why would you not teach that to your kids?
Because I don't want my kids to grow up hating themselves and their country.
So you turn them into permanent children. Then. Yeah, I know you're joking, but I guess that's the theory, that teach them the myth, the legends, as opposed to what is true. And so forget critical race theory. How does that develop critical thinking? I mean, then you're just churning out generation after generation of Americans who lack critical thinking, and then can be told anything like, "Hey, if you lower taxes, you'll balance the budget," or "There's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and hey, Saddam Hussein, he's responsible for 9/11."
Right.
You can't have a democracy unless you teach our kids critical thinking, which they're not going to get from homeschooling. They're going to get that from public schools that are funded properly. And I don't know why. I mean, why do we have to listen to these ignoramuses, these racist ignoramuses? Why? And, why do we have to be polite? Why can't we just call them what they are?
People don't like to be called racist or racism, or they don't like to be accused of being racist. And it's a very divisive thing to do or say. That's why.
But it is racist to not want to teach children about slavery. Or in Texas, there's a law that was passed in the Senate, hasn't been signed by Abbott yet, where you're not allowed to learn about Cesar Chavez, Martin Luther King, or Rosa Parks. They're taking the civil rights movement out of the curriculum in Texas. That's what the Senate in Texas wants to do. How is that not racist?
it would seem to me the most obvious racist policy in the United States of America that's the most effective racist policy is to make it harder for, in this case, black people to vote. Is there anything more racist in terms of effective policy that would minimize black folks in this case, in your mind?
Well,
outside of the obvious brutalizations and, you know.
I think our schools are, I think voting rights, but I also think the way we fund our schools in America, it creates...
Right, but the point is that every change that would create more opportunity for black folks in this case can only occur if you can elect people who can make the rules different about property taxes, funding schools,
right,
et cetera. Like, so if to me, it's such an obvious and blatant racist thing. And it's also so unbelievably sad to see older black folks go, oh my God, I thought we were, wow, they're at the end of their life and the shit they fought for 30 years ago, maybe not, is back.
Yeah. Well, constant vigilance. Just because I was foolish enough to think after Watergate. I'm older than you.
How old were you during Watergate? Were you paying attention?
I was working for Archibald Cox. No, I remember thinking after Watergate that this will never happen again. Right. There are people like my parents thought after Hoover tanked the economy in 29 and the Republicans couldn't get out of the Depression, and then Roosevelt saved America with the New Deal, that it was settled law that the government spending will save an economy, and you need a strong federal government. And because there isn't constant vigilance, the Democratic Party let the narrative change, and suddenly government became the enemy.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, on my parents' watch, it went from government saved this country to government is the enemy. The march of time, it tramples the truth. And unless you're vigilant and remind people and fight for what you have, you lose it. All the rights that people fought for, you cannot take for granted, ever. That's the lesson I learned. I always thought, like anti-Semitism, I knew anti-Semitism would come back. That's a perennial. I mean, that's always. But I thought homophobia would end. I thought racism would end. Misogyny would end with the Me Too movement. I remember watching Clarence Thomas, the Anita Hill hearings, and thinking, well, now the workplace is going to be different. I watched and went, okay, now men are going to learn a lesson. There's before Clarence Thomas and after Clarence Thomas, and now all men know you can't say, hey, is this a pubic hair on my Diet Coke?
Right.
And it's like, nope. And it didn't get a lot worse. We just found out that it is. I mean, here's what I'm guilty of. I had no idea how bad it was for black people until the iPhone.
Why? Are you being serious?
Yeah, I had no idea. I knew that cops were a problem for black people, but I didn't realize that they live in a completely different America, and that the police, that if you call the cops and you're black, it could be trouble. I had no idea.
You know why I knew, to some extent, I felt, I did know that because I had so many bad incidents with law enforcement and seen my dad as well have a lot of arguments with law enforcement, that I knew that if they were that kind of abusive verbally and physically to me, I got in a couple scrapes with cops and my brother and my dad, then I was like, well, it must be a lot worse then for black people. And then, yeah, you see the videos constantly.
The videos, yeah. And I had no idea how hard it was for women or the LGBTQ community.
You raised a daughter, didn't you?
I let somebody else make all the important decisions.
Okay.
Yes, but I did.
And
she's amazing.
Yeah. Well, because when you know, I think that it's okay. Sometimes people would have said to me, because I've made the argument, well, you know, I've got daughters, so I think about these things, and people say you shouldn't have to have daughters to be a good man. You've got a mother, you know women, and you shouldn't. And I always say, yeah, okay, fine, but you do think about whatever your child's categories are. If they have a congenital health issue, you think about that more. If they have whatever it is, so gender, of course, you think about what it's going to be like for your daughter in the world as traveling through the world in whatever vessel she is in. You know, did you not think about that a lot raising her?
She set me straight on a couple of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not know, and I'm just being honest. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for forgiveness. I live a quiet life. I would go off to work, come home. I did notice that all the comedy writing, I'm laughing out of shame, that the comedy writing rooms were mostly white men. That I do know that I'm the beneficiary of systemic sexism, homophobia, and racism.
And you are the beneficiary of being Jewish because Jews run the media and entertainment in particular.
Exactly. And right. Banking and real estate. Surprisingly, I'll push back on that. There are some writing rooms that have been very Jewish, but I've been on shows where I was the only Jew. So that's not necessarily true.
I didn't really think it was, but you've been in the rooms.
I've been in the rooms, and I've also heard people say, we're not hiring any Jewish writers.
Do you, when you think
of that, we don't want any Jewish writers,
no.
And that's kind of acceptable. Like I've heard there's too much. Anyway,
there were. That's a great answer. There were two more things I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
One is
I heard somebody say we're not hiring Jewish writers because I said it. No, I'm kidding. I didn't say that. I thought it.
I wanted to know just your general, what you think about the conversation about cancel culture. And I think there's two categories. I think there is kind of comedians and satirists and everybody else to some extent. And I also think the everybody else is definitely, if you said something a long time ago or growing up, it's out of bounds. Those are my general parameters about it. But, you know, you hear it being a really animating issue, mostly on the right, but certainly now increasingly on the left. You hear a lot of established comedians that we respect talking about it, and you're one of them. And so I wanted to get your general take on the idea. Do you think it's overplayed? Do you think it's an important conversation? Do you think there's anything that needs to be done?
Words matter. What you say And what you say about what somebody just said matters. It is a conversation, and it'll never be settled because language evolves, and the words we choose go from being the right word to the wrong word. There are words that become bad, and as a writer, I pay attention to words, and I think they're important because they convey meaning. They convey what we feel and believe. So that if you tell me the word picnic is perceived as a racist etymology, I have a choice. I can say, well, not enough people know that picnic is a bad word, so I'm going to keep using it. Or I can buy a thesaurus and find another word for picnic and not offend the 0.05% of the population that knows that picnic is a bad word, that it's associated with lynchings. And then, so if I write something 20 years from now, when more people learn that picnic is a bad word, I won't look foolish. You have a choice. You can be told, I say, if I have to refer to the N-word, I say the N-word. I don't say the N-word. I think there's some white people who enjoy saying the N-word. They get off on it. And they like to play games where it's presented in a safe context. So you can't really accuse them of using the N-word, but it's a sly way to get to say the N-word, especially in front of black people. I just think the N-word is, you don't say it. And if somebody says to you, I find something offensive, you have no right to tell somebody they shouldn't feel offended. People have a right to be offended. They have a right to say, I'm offended. You have a choice to say, I don't believe you have a right to be offended. That's your choice. But there are consequences to people being dismissive of people's offense. And I've had some friends who've paid a huge price for just not backing down and saying, oh, I didn't know that word is offensive. I mean, I have a friend who just got shit canned from a job because he would not stop using the N-word in its proper context. In other words, if you're quoting somebody,
right,
contextually, it at one time was perceived acceptable, and somebody said to him, you should stop saying the N-word. No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I'm black. It's not okay. No, you're wrong. It's okay, because I'm quoting somebody using the N-word. I'm not using no, I'm telling you it's offensive. And then somebody else says it's offensive. And if you're white and you're telling them, no, it's okay, they're going to be and there should be consequences. You have no right to tell somebody they can't be offended, and they have every right to push back.
I think I know the person you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. It's because it belies a bullheadedness.
Yeah.
It's not. Is it racism? I don't know if it's. I guess it's racism if black people are telling you not to use the N-word and you're telling them it's okay. It's pretty bad. And so, is that cancel culture? Yeah. Do I have a problem with that? No, I think people who won't back down on something like that, they have to go to the back of the line.
Do you think it's a bigger problem that you're concerned with? Have you gotten in any trouble for saying anything as a comic or on your podcast or anywhere else?
Yeah, I have.
Do you
I get complaints all the time?
You get complaints all the time?
Yes, that I use a word and
is it Oriental? Is that the word you use?
No. I had Lindsay
My dad said Oriental like 3 years ago. I was like, I don't think so, Pop. And then my dad had a funny response. He's like, I don't care about this political correctness. As long as I can call people asshole, you can take all the rest of the words from me. Right.
He's right.
Yeah. What were you going to say? Sorry.
No, there's certain words that I didn't know are offensive, and so I'll go, okay. I used to resist it. I used to resist. In fact, when I first got my radio show 10 years ago, I made a joke about Ann Coulter having an Adam's apple and being a man, which was just a joke that 10 years ago, everybody used to make jokes about Ann Coulter being a man.
Yes.
And I got a letter, so that's offensive. You're marginalizing transgender people by saying Ann Coulter being a man is a bad thing. And I wrote back, give me a break. I'm on your side.
Right.
And then this person sent me picture after picture of transgender people with black eyes and wounded, and showed me how transgender people are victimized. And I wrote back, you're right, I'm wrong. I will stop making these jokes. So I still catch myself saying, really, I can't say that now? I can't say... And, but if you listen, you'll stop doing it, if it's reasonable. It's up to you to decide. But it's also up to the other people to decide if you're being unreasonable.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a very fair way of describing it.
Tony Hinchcliffe.
Yeah.
I watched that video.
Yeah.
Did he ever apologize?
I'm trying to remember what that was.
Well, it's like, just say you're sorry.
What did he do?
I don't want to repeat it. But if you do something, instead of going to, it's like, maybe he apologized. But
comedian Tony Hinchcliffe reportedly was dropped by his talent agency after 2 live appearances with Joe Rogan after he used a racist slur about Asian people?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to, but it's like, I made a joke. I've tried to shock the audience.
Right.
By saying something that's really horrible. And I thought it would work. We're comedians. We always try to, say something horrible to get a rise out of people. I made a mistake. I apologize. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I made a mistake.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought that it would be so shocking that people would laugh and know that I said it because it's so wrong and so offensive that it would get a laugh. Please forgive me. I'm sorry.
You're not. You're the idea. A lot of people argue, especially comedians like the kind of Anthony Cumia's of the world. I think Joe Rogan does that. You should never really apologize because you shouldn't have to.
What's wrong with apologizing?
I don't know. I can't make the argument. Because I guess if you don't mean it, it is problematic. Like if you don't mean your apology, then you shouldn't apologize.
Well, then maybe you're a racist.
Well, there's that. The
Anthony Cumia?
I feel like that's the kind of argument that he's made. I don't know. I was just listening to him. I saw that Joe Rogan had him on, and I was like,
Anthony Cumia.
Yep. And I was like, well, this will be good. I know Anthony really well. I was like, well, this will be interesting to hear them. And
Anthony to me is a racist.
He's pretty outward. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. At least, yeah.
No, he is. I mean, I saw the tweets. I saw the incident that got him fired from Sirius with the black woman. And it's taking pictures. And he said, what is it about black people where everything, the first thing is they turn to violence? That's what he wrote. I mean, he has a history of...
Yeah. There's a lot more there, but I was actually what really pissed me off or offended me was their conversation about, masculinity and men can't be men, and we have to apologize for being men. That kind of stuff is tiresome to me, and I think it really is at the root of a lot of our problems, men and manliness and all that shit. I've never talked to you about that though, and we have talked about, me being this kind of alpha, but I think that that's not a classical, and it's almost a bit that I did with you, but I mean. Yeah, that conversation to me is boring. The masculinity conversation is really boring at this point to me.
It's boring for a man like you because you take your masculinity for granted, but men like me, the Omegas, who look up to you, we wonder how you do it.
The final question or topic I wanted to ask you about is organized labor. I know you're really passionate about it. You've been a member of many a union. You're a very talented, respected writer, so the Writers Guild and all that. And I also am a huge advocate of organized labor for all kinds of obvious reasons. But, this is an issue. It's very divisive in America, and I wonder, it's interesting to see how it's playing out with Amazon and some of these southern states and how we might be seeing a change on people's feelings toward organized labor. There's currently a strike. I forget which state it's in. Coal miners are on strike, and they're all right wingers, apparently, and they're not calling themselves, they're not talking about unionizing. They're talking about, they call themselves strikers, is how they refer to themselves. They're on the picket line right now at this coal mine. But where do you think?
Blackstone, is Blackstone or BlackRock, are they I know they were.
I want to look it up. But I'll look it up while you're telling me. But what are your thoughts on the current status of the labor movement, and why is it important?
Richard Trumka passed away this week. He was head of the AFL-CIO. I made a joke about him on my show that I felt bad.
Well, I liked that joke.
Yeah, I felt bad, but
I liked it. Make it here. I thought it was a fine joke.
I didn't like it. I made because I was making fun of him.
Well,
but he was ineffectual, and the union. There is a problem with unions because it's been taken over by people with clean fingernails. Like Trumka, people celebrated Trumka because he got a law degree, and I don't want my union leaders having law degrees. I want a Marxist thug. You hire a pit bull to protect your property, not a poodle. And Richard Trumka went to law school, so he was taught civility. When you're fighting to unionize, there's nothing civil. You have to take the shop. Not violently, but it gets violent sometimes because they send in thugs. Unionizing is not a gentle art. And unfortunately, the gentleman who was in charge of the union that in Bessemer, the union that we wanted the Amazon workers in Bessemer to sign with, he was up in Connecticut. I forgot the name of his union, but he's a lawyer, Harvard lawyer. And I'm sure he made a couple of trips down to Bessemer, but I don't want lawyers running unions. You hire a lawyer. The law means nothing. The law, we've learned that. Donald Trump taught us the law means nothing, especially when it comes to corporate America. You don't need lawyers running unions. You need people who want a livable wage for the rank and file. And so we have to cleanse these unions of people who are making twice as much, 3 times as much, 10 times as much as the rank and file. You need angry thugs running a union because that's what you're up against. So that's the problem with the unions.
Current labor movement. That I was talking about the striking Alabama coal miners. It's the United Mine Workers of America, is what I was talking about.
Well, hopefully one day well, at least coal miners, we won't need coal miners. Hopefully, it's if you're a Democrat, I feel the Democratic Party should be called the Labor Party, not the Democratic Party, and that if you own a business, you can call yourself a Democrat, but the Democratic Party should be the workers' party. If you own a business, you can be a Democrat, but you can't be part of the leadership.
Right.
I think that would make the Democrats. We would win by a landslide if the Democratic Party shamed wealth, so that Nancy Pelosi, who's got $100 million, I don't know how Joe Manchin can afford a $750,000 houseboat. Well, his daughter gave us the EpiPen. His daughter.
Well, he bought the boat for $220.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
His daughter is a big pharma pirate.
Yeah.
So you give me a Democratic Party, and I see their tax returns. You give me a Speaker of the House who's worth $250,000 as opposed to $250 million, and I'll show you a Democratic Party that wins in all 50 states, in all congressional districts. You give me a Democratic Party that says, if you're a multimillionaire, you can vote for us, but you ain't running this party. I'll show you a permanent Democratic majority in the House, in the Senate, in every single state house. It's that simple. You have to purge the Democratic Party of people who either run a corporation or are a corporation.
People who
Get rid of them.
Put profit before people. People who do that.
Yeah.
Who are you most influenced by, political philosophers? Is there anybody who's like
Ralph Nader.
That's right. You know him? You co-hosted a show with him or something?
I don't. They say I co-host. I do a weekly radio show with Ralph Nader and Steve Scrovan.
That's right. Steve's a great guy.
I introduced Ralph, and then I listened to him.
Is he still got his wits about him? He's still sharp?
Oh my God, yes. You should have him on your show.
Yeah, I had him. I interviewed him years ago, a couple times.
He's the best. He is the greatest American since Ben Franklin.
Do you think that he's the reason why John Kerry lost, or was it Al Gore lost in 2000?
No, absolutely not.
That argument always won with me.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it with you right now.
I can't anyway. I don't even know what it is. Yeah. But I just want to know what you thought about it. I figured.
No.
All right. Well, I appreciate you getting into.
I love you. This was interesting.
Was it? Did you enjoy it? I hope you did. I love talking to you.
I mean, I just don't know if I don't know how interesting this was. I hope it was interesting to your listeners. This was one of the deepest interviews. I don't remember being interviewed this way.
Well, I'm exceptional at this.
You got me to open up.
I'm really good at that.
I haven't been this open since my prostate was examined by 40 separate urologists at the same time.
Why was that?
I was in the park one night. I was bird watching. And you know me, I love doctors. I'm a hypochondriac, so 40, and they, anyway, I don't want to.
David Feldman. What
this
a pleasure.
Was great.
I could talk to you for 2 more hours. Thank you very much. We'll do it again soon.
Okay. Enjoy your vacation.
Do you know how to enjoy a vacation?
No, you enjoy your vacation.
Do you know what's your advice on how to enjoy a vacation?
Don't go on one.
It's terrible.
I'm mentally ill. I haven't had a
advice.
vacation in, I don't know how, I can't relax.
Yeah, that's my problem. That's why I asked the wrong person, though.
You know what? Seriously, when I do have to go on a vacation, I bring a yellow canary pad and a pen, and I wake up and then I just start writing.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's exactly what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah.
Oh, good advice.
I enjoy. I mean, is this work? What we're doing right now? No.
Putting it together is work. Like the pre and post and all that's more work. But this is
more fun than a vacation.
I love talking to people. I was thinking about bringing my microphone on vacation. I like the idea of just interviewing random people I've never talked to and then making it hopefully be interesting. That's what comedy. I was always a crowd work. I've always been a crowd worker. I like to engage people. So. Everybody has some story to tell.
I love you, buddy.
Thank you. Love you too, bud. Bye.
Stand up. Okay, there you go. I hope that you enjoyed that. That is comedian David Feldman of the David Feldman Show. You can find him online at davidfeldman.com. Definitely listen to his podcast. I love talking to him, and I hope he'll come back. I'm sure he will. Come back on the show. You can always hear me on his show, which is all archived. Always a lot of fun. And I hope you had a great week. Thank you for supporting me during my week, quote, off, even though I still did a little work. But I was happy I got all these episodes up. And I'm so thankful that you appreciate them. Heard from a lot of listeners that appreciated me putting these up this week. So thank you very, very much. I'll be back with you on Monday, of course, Monday through Friday. And if you aren't supporting this podcast with a paid subscription, we would love it if you did. Okay, now it's time for singer-songwriter Jon Carroll to sing us out as he does each and every weekday here on Stand Up with a song he wrote just for us.
When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels, been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the see them flee the scene of that experiment. If you stand up, all right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.